This fish tank requires 0 water changes. It is an extremely low maintenance tank and is the easiest aquarium that I've ever kept for. So in this video, I'm going to explain exactly what is going on in this tank that makes it so easy to care for, and explain exactly how you can replicate this for yourself. So to begin, let's take a look at my tank. So this is a 60-gallon breeder tank, or 60-gallon long. A pretty good sized tank. You can find these at Petco. This one is made by Aqueon. I absolutely love this kind of tank because for how large of a tank it has a very large surface area. So this is basically the same surface area as a 75-gallon tank, but it's just shorter and it's a 60-gallon tank. I have a very large tank here. That's factor number 1. Factor number 2, I have a ton of filters in here. So I have 8 sponge filters in this tank. That is absolutely more than enough filtration I have in here for the BioLode. Even with 2 of these sponge filters, or maybe even 1 of these sponge filters, I could honestly get away with the current BioLode I have, but I do plan on having more guppies in here pretty soon, so I have 8 in there. But again, you're never gonna have a problem when you have too many filters. Too many filters is a good thing. So 1, I have a 60-gallon tank. 2, I have 8 filters on this 60-gallon tank. 3, I have a very large amount of plants on this tank. So these plants specifically, these are called pothos. Now I do have 1 monstera plant on here, but besides that one little guy, all the rest of these are pothos. And if you want to have a 0 water change tank, or very low maintenance tank, stocking up on a large amount of plants is going to be extremely important. So plants basically complete that ending of the nitrogen cycle. When you drop food into your tank, your fish are going to eat it. They're going to create ammonia. The filters will take that ammonia and turn it into nitrite, which is still toxic. But then again, they'll turn that nitrite into nitrate. But that nitrate, that kind of hangs around in the water. That doesn't go anywhere. Sometimes if you have very, very thick substrate, you can have bacteria that consume it. But generally, you're not going to get rid of that nitrate unless you have a lot of plants in here. So if you don't have a lot of plants, generally how nitrate is removed is through water changes. But we don't want water changes. So the more plants you have on the tank, the better. Now you don't have to use something like pothos, but I really like pothos because once it grows to a certain point, it just gets huge. It gets huge and just consumes a lot of waste from the tank. Almost to the point that you can barely keep these filters truly cycled, because even the ammonia, as soon as there's nitrogen waste in this tank, it just gets absorbed by all these plants. So having a large amount of plants on your tank is going to help a ton. You don't have to have these above tank plants. You could have in-water plants, you could have floating plants, but you have to make sure that it's enough that it's going to consume everything the fish produce and more. And definitely pothos, there's unlimited potential. These can continue growing out of your tank. Just beware, don't allow the leaves and stuff to start growing underneath, because the leaves will fall off and the stems will rot. And if the fish consume the leaves, there's a potential for that to be poisonous. So we've covered tank size, we've covered filtration, we've also covered plants, having plants in the tank. And now let's cover the fish in the tank. So I actually attempted to have this be a 0 water change system, having a couple goldfish in here. That did not work out. I still needed to do water changes on here, and that's because goldfish are massive waste producers. They poop a lot. They have a very large BioLode. But now currently in here, I have guppies. Guppies produce a fraction of a percentage of what a large goldfish produces in terms of waste. So if you are not trying to create a crazy amount of waste, because that will require water changes, you want to get a fish that produces a very small amount of waste. So things like shrimp, guppies, mollies, I've even heard of endlers, those little live bearer fish, those little tiny ones, those are going to produce such little waste that it's going to be a lot easier to sustain a no water change system. I'm currently only using guppies. I only have experience with guppies, not even that much experience with them. But from what I've found already, these guys multiply like crazy, they breed like crazy. So there is a potential for maybe one day the BioLode to get a little too large on this tank. But if that happens, I will simply drop my turtle in here for around 10 minutes and he'll cut the population down a little bit and then I'll take him out. No, but seriously, you want to find a very low BioLode fish. Guppies are a great example of this. If you are trying to replicate this for yourself, my recommendations are: 1, get a very large tank. 2, get 3 times the amount of filters you think you need on that tank. 4, get some plants. Don't actually add in all your fish until your plants really get established. The pothos on this tank are extremely established. They have roots all over the place. They have leaves and stuff growing all over the place. This stuff absorbs the waste extremely easily. If you want to not do the water changes, you have to give that vegetation a little bit of time to fully set in before you present the full bioload to them. And 4, yeah, get a low bioload fish. Now substrate is honestly optional. I do like having substrate in here because if you have a bare bottom tank, you're gonna be able to like see that sludge and stuff produce, and the substrate honestly kind of hides that. And I'm okay with having a little bit of sludge in there because of how low bioload the tank is. Even the rotting sludge in the bottom will easily get absorbed by the plants. That'll just be extra nutrient for the plants. Now, what I'm about to say may burst a lot of your hearts out there. Though this is a low maintenance tank system, it is not a no maintenance tank system. Unfortunately, there's something called evaporation, and there's also something called, water usage by plants, which causes the water level to go down over time. So you will occasionally need to get your hose out and fill up this water, as it goes down. Now, you don't want it to go too far down, because if you just pour in a bunch of new water on a very established, no water change system, that might kind of shock and screw up your fish. So when it goes down a couple inches, just refill it a couple inches, and that'll restore nutrients and not vitamins, but it'll restore minerals to the water, which are important for the fish and important for the plants. And it'll just keep your tank at a good level. And also another form of maintenance, which you may want to occasionally do, is cleaning those filters. Those fish will still crap. There will still be things that settle in the filters and get dirty over time. Now, if you have a crazy amount of plants on your tank like I do, you may get away with just barely ever cleaning the filters and letting that sludge and gunk and stuff build up in there, but just letting all that extra waste be consumed by the plants. You may be able to find a situation like that, but for best keeping over time, at least a couple times a year, you may want to pull those filters out and squeeze all that crap and stuff that's in there. Overall, the basic thought process going into this low maintenance, no water change tank system is trying to replicate nature. Nature has very large bodies of water, which relative to the size of body of water, have very low stockings. If you look in a pond, you don't see a densely packed a bunch of fish all together like you see in a lot of aquariums. You see a fish here, you see a fish there, you see a fish there. Relative to the size of the body of water, you have a low fish stocking, and then you have algae and plants all over the place. So you have a lot of nutrient absorbing things all over the place. So big bodies of water, small amount of fish, large amount of nutrient absorbing things, trying to replicate nature in a tank. But because in nature, there's streams flowing into bodies of water and rainfall into bodies of water, we cannot replicate that here, but we can top off the tank every so often and replenish some minerals along with that. Thank you everybody for watching. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you try replicating this and are not successful, just put your turtle in there and he'll just remove everything. You can start fresh.